This is a beat that I made recently, and this is quite bass heavy. As you can see, I have two kicks. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different bass sounds. So there's a lot to get a grasp on here. Let's dive in. I'll start by showing you the beat, a snippet of the beat. Okay, that's the beat essentially. Okay, the main theme is here. So as you can see, the different bass sounds doesn't play at the same time. So you have a sub hit here, you have a sub fill that goes here, and here you have another sub. I call them sub, but they're not actually subs. They're basses, but they're sub heavy. And here you have a hit, and there you have a hit. So they don't play at the same time, except the kick will always interfere with the bass. As you can see here, you have the kick here, and you have the hit here. So what do you do when the kick and the bass hits at the same time? What do you do? In most cases, the bass is stretched out more in time than the kick. The kick is transient heavy, as they hit once and it's snappy and it's short, while the bass also hits, but it's longer. So if I bury the kick, my beat will lose definition. So I think I will sacrifice a bit of the initial bass transients to make room for the kick, while boosting more of the tail of the bass, maybe. As in this example, but this applies to many types of beats. So the first step that I take, it's very simple. I go to the kick. I have grouped the kicks together. I have made what Logic calls a track stack, which is basically a folder that contains all the items that I've selected. So I've selected the kick and the kick ghost, which is just a small kick. That's the ghost and that's the kick. Now I have grouped them together. Now look what I've done with the panning. I've panned the kick slightly, only slightly, -2. So it's basically dead center, as it should be, since it's a kick and it should be in mono in most cases, especially below 200 hertz. I think the kick, without exception, should be mono. Well, there are exceptions, of course, but that's another video. Now you have the bass. This is the bass bus, where I have routed all the different basses together. Now this has +2 panning. Still dead center, but slightly, just slightly. Now what this does is that it helps alleviate a bit of the interference. Not much, it's very, very subtle. And the key here, in most cases, when it comes to mixing, and especially mixing in the low end, which is hard, you have to be precise and you have to use your ears, good headphones, etc. Do small changes. Let's listen to them with no processing on, but the panning. Okay, listen. So it helps a bit. Now let me just show you the EQ settings I have on the kick, which is, in hip hop at least, I think the kick is the most important element, because that's the body, that's the that's the weight of the beats, and it defines the energy. So what I've done here, the first thing I did was removing some low end rumble. I also removed some high end, which was a bit too clicky. I didn't like that clicky sound, so I removed it. On the kick ghost, I have removed a lot of high end to make it more muffled and more ghosty. Woohoo! I haven't removed anything below here. I didn't think there was much low end rumble there to speak of, but the other one had some. And then on the group channel here, which I've called kicks, I have done a pocket action. So this is pocketing the kick. Now, if you've guessed it right, this area here, which I have cut a bit, I have cut it almost 3 dB, and that's the fundamental frequency of the sub bass. Let's check. Here we have. So you see here, when the kick comes in, we are at 40 or 50 hertz, whilst the kick has its fundamentals in 80 hertz. And therefore, I have ducked or cut 80 hertz, about 2.5, 2.3, with a decent amount of Q, but not too much. Not too wide, not too narrow. That was step 2, using EQ to create pockets for both the kick and the bass. Now, as I initially said, we need to create even more space for the kick, and that's where sidechain compression comes in. Now, what is sidechaining? Sidechaining is that I have a processor here on the bass track because I want this bass to be affected by something else. And by something else, I want it to be affected by the kick, both the ghost kick and the main kick. All right, this plugin here, the track spacer, I could have used a regular compressor, but the track spacer is more surgical because you can zoom in on which frequency you want cut. So for instance, now I have the high cut filter set to 100 hertz, which means that everything here will remain uncompressed, but all the stuff going on here will be compressed by the kick because it's set to sidechain. The kick will decide how much compression is happening, and this amount button decides by how much. And I always go very easy on it, 8.8% on this one, because I don't want the effect to be audible. I just want to remove as much as I can without anyone noticing, right? So I'll try to go ninja. Let's hear. Here you see the kick, and here's the ducking. I'll ramp up the amounts and show you what's actually going on. Just go 100. So everything here is still audible, but the sub is almost completely turned off. But I don't want that. I want it to be subtle. So here at 15, you still hear the ducking effect. Listen. To hear this, you absolutely need some good headphones that can reproduce down to 30 hertz, maybe 40 hertz. So 8.8 was my initial setting. Listen. Now, the last step I want to show you is on the mix bus. I will insert a compressor. That can be multi-band compressor, or it can be a regular compressor. I'll show you with a regular one first. Let's just go with stock compressor, and I will compress the beat without using any sidechain filter, such as this one. So you can have the sidechain filter on and only compress what's above a certain frequency. That's what you often do when you're bus compressing, but now we will turn that off, and because I will show you with the frequency spectrum analyzer that the sub frequencies in most cases is the most prominent ones, and when you start bus compressing, the low frequencies will affect the compressor first. So that's why we oftentimes use the sidechain function to leave out the lowest frequencies so that you get more compression on the high end, but we will not do that now. Now I'll show you with the Pro Q3 spectrum analyzer. I'll show you how prominent the bass is. You see, the 40-50 hertz region is absolutely dominating the frequency spectrum. This will, when someone lays a verse upon this, there are some vocals, this will be more balanced. Naked beats are often quite, especially those with 808s and stuff, they're always quite bass heavy, much more bass heavy than you would need them to be. But as soon as you have some vocals on, there's a game changer. So let's see the compressor here. Now, by doing this, you get slight control of the low end. The low end won't pop up as much and be more consistent. I often use the multiband compressor from FabFilter for this task. I will create a node here in the low end and I will drag it up. It's perfect. It's just over 100 there. And I will leave the setting as it is by default. And I will listen. So what I did there was ducking the low frequencies using compression. Whenever the bass reaches a certain level of gain, the compressor will duck the gain and make it lower in volume. Afterwards, I have compensated by dragging up the output level a bit to not lose any bass impact, because I want this beat to be bass heavy. I want those low frequencies to live their own life, but I want them to live a structured and obedient life. I don't want them to be outlaws or rogues or anything like that. I want them to be good citizens of the song. If you like videos like these, please hit the subscribe button. Don't forget that. You know, you get all soaked in, you get pulled into the universe of mixing low end, and then you forget to subscribe. So hit the subscribe button now, and let's move forward. Let's just listen to what we have now. The bass heavy part here, for example. Let's listen. That's with our processing. Now, let's just, for the sake of it, turn off all the plugins. Let's listen now. Did you hear the difference? Did you hear that you can also hit rewind and listen to the finished results and then move forward and listen to the untreated results? The after and before in this case. Try to listen to it a couple of times and listen in. Do you hear the changes? Do you hear that the bass is more defined, that the kick is more prominent, and that the bass also has more impact? Those were some methods that I often use when I mix the low end. Do you have other methods? Do you know of other ways of doing the low end? Please let me know in the comments. And if you like videos like this, hit the subscription button. And before you go, the mixing cheat sheet is linked in the description. There I break down the 10-step workflow that I use every time I mix a new song. And there's also 15 cheat codes that can and will improve your mixing workflow and the overall quality of your mixes. Okay, I'll catch you later then. Peace!